Good morning. My name is Scott Forcino. I'm an associate broker with eXp Realty. I'm very familiar with Long Island real estate and Westchester and the city. I founded PlugIntro for real estate professionals across the country to solve the two problems they have, which are they don't have enough people to meet and they don't have enough value outside their service to offer others. Really proud today to have Joseph Latini, a friend, very important mortgage professional on Long Island and the area around it. And Joseph's going to let us know more about his company, his services, his experience, how he works with clients, and how he really serves his agent referral partners. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning. I love that we're on to Joseph, like my mom. You can always tell when we're recording because I'm Joseph.
Yes, well,
I'm Joe as soon as it turns off, but
it's Joe, but I see Joseph written, so I'm going to give you. You can knock it down. So, how are you? And tell me what's going on in the market and about yourself. And, this is, we need to know more about you.
Well, for those who don't know, it's Joseph Latini. In the mortgage business. This is my 30th year now in the mortgage industry, but, commonly referred to as a mortgage brat. I was brought up in this business. So, my father before me was in this business when mortgage banks were founded in the mid 70s, among the breakup of the banks and all. So I've had a unique perspective to watch the business evolve from mortgage brokers who sent loans to, to different independent lenders, to the advent of Fannie and Freddie and FHA, and how that aspect of government insured lending grew to Eagle lenders who were only allowed to underwrite their own government loans, and at that time they were underwritten by the government, and then it evolved into lenders who underwrote their own loans, to servicing platforms, correspondent platforms, all different aspects of table funding, things like that. So it's been interesting to spend my life watching this business evolve into what it is now, and to where I am now. And now I am the New York retail area manager for Caliber Home Loans. So I run all aspects of retail coming through New York State for Caliber Home Loans.
That's impressive. So, you watched the evolution, and I was a big part of the evolution of the bad old days with the no income check. And tell me where we are, post Dodd-Frank a little bit, and then tell me where we are now with this changing mortgage rate where it looks like bad news every day.
Yeah, it's news every day. It's not bad news every day. There is no bad news in our business because, one of the things I've come to realize is not that there's no panic involved if you're in this business in the long haul. You talk about like the no income check loans and the pre-collapse loans, and I always called that 2000 to 2007, 2008 era, the steroid era of mortgages.
I like that.
Yeah, it was when people told me in 2010, 2011, well, I'm no stranger to this business. I've been doing this for 10 years, and I would chuckle and go, yeah, you don't know the business. You know a small aspect of the business. There's that old story of if I blindfold two scientists and put them on either side of an elephant and tell them to feel around and tell me what they're, describe what they're feeling, I'm going to get two very different answers. So, folks who were doing this from 2000 to 2000, let's say 10, had one change to look at and very little context of what that meant over the years. Those of us that have been going through this for a long time, we're seeing something we haven't seen. This is certainly a new change, a new development in the last 30 years, but it's not new that we have these types of developments. So my advice to the loan officers out there, realtors in particular, is, not to worry, to relax. Yes, there's a changing environment out there, but like everything else, you have to adapt and change with your environment to succeed. And those that are apt at doing that, they do it in this environment, they do it in the past environments. They tend to make money whatever the situation happens to be. Mm-hmm. And complainers, I notice, tend to complain whatever the situation happens to be. People are complaining right now about raising interest rates. We're complaining that rates were going down and their locks were no longer good. And so the people that complain about things today complained about the complete opposite problem 2 years ago. It's just a matter of being able to adapt and evolve with the market.
Well, okay. I mean, I certainly understand that. I know that mortgage lending business is tied very strongly to agents. I mean, how are you handling people who either are either in a lock situation? How long can that last? What about people with the wrong idea? They have a memory of March and February and they don't know what we're doing now. They want the 800,000. I mean, what do you do to dispel people and educate them of reality of where we are?
It's the same thing when you buy a television, a car, when you deal with your child or your spouse, right? You have to deal with the here and now. And so the biggest thing I can part listen, if I'm speaking to a customer, it's very different than if I'm speaking to a realtor or a loan officer. If I'm speaking to that customer, I say, you have to compare what you have available in front of you to what your alternatives are. So you may, in your mind, believe that you're overpaying for a house or that the rates are going up, but you have to look at what that mortgage payment's going to be, what you're paying for that house, as opposed to your alternative, which is renting. And the renting right now, at least here in lower New York, is through the roof. I mean, the cost of, we're in somewhat of the same market, you and I. And what's the cost of renting a 2 or 3 bedroom house right now? It's
It's
astronomical.
like high threes, if not fours.
Right. So even though you've come into a place where the rates are almost all in the fives or the late fours, um, and evolving rapidly into the sixes, if you listen to any forecaster out there, um, your alternative is not very good. Your alternative is still the more expensive option. So you can say, well, I'm going to wait and see what's going to happen 2 years from now. But what do you do from now to 2 years? Your house is a different type of investment. It's the thing you live in. So it's not only a financial investment, but it's the foundation of your family, where you raise your children, where you spend your downtime. So, you have to put all of that into context. And right now, even though you're in an environment where the rates are going up, I mean, obviously, it's better than the alternative stuff.
Right. I just had a situation in New York City where a client is selling a house for an amount that they could not have imagined. And then they're complaining about rates. And I said, wait a minute. The rate makes the payment more. I mean, this rate dialogue should not even happen when someone is selling and buying, because pre-COVID it was worth X and now it's worth X plus YY. So, you worry about $400, $500 a month, which it really can be, or 300 or 400 based on anything, over $500,000, let's say. But you just walked out of your house, and thank you to Bill Clinton and the U.S. government. That's, if you're married, you have $500,000 profit, and there's no other business in America can you make $500,000 and not pay tax on it.
Yeah, and the capital gains exemption, remember, is per person, so a couple even has a higher exemption. And you're talking about capital gain. People confuse that sometimes with the price of the house. So if you bought your house for $400,000 and you have a capital gain exemption of $500,000, that means you sell it for $900 and you have a zero tax liability. Even if you sell it for $1 million and you have a $100,000 tax liability, you have, I believe, I'm not an accountant, so I want you to check that out, but I believe you have up to 2 years to roll that into a new primary and not even have a tax liability on that. So it's, it really is an environment.
So that person should not be complaining about a higher rate than they had on Valentine's Day.
Listen, I used to hear my father say things like, well, when I started in the business, meaning when he started in the business, rates were 17%. And then, of course, when I started in the business myself, rates were about 10%. But you have to juxtapose that against the price of a house, right? The average loan size he was writing was like $45,000, $40,000. So it's a very different thing. Yes, interest rates have gone up faster than I've seen them go up in the last 30 years. However, in the last year and a half, 2 years, rates went down faster than I've ever seen them go down before. So you can't look at that environment of, well, everybody was on lockdown, nobody was out working, everybody was getting, not everybody, but a good amount of people were getting checks from the government without going to work. I mean, the government, it can be argued, was setting up an environment where you knew that this was going to be the outcome. So you can't complain when the outcome comes that everybody knew was fast coming.
Right. Plus, there were so many things. There were the forbearance, so people were relieved of this obligation of paying, and a good percentage of people went into forbearance. So now there was this secret stimulus where you weren't paying your mortgage, you were not dinging your credit, and you had money for Amazon in your PJs during the day.
Right. And it's a rabbit hole we can go down for 3 hours, but it's the bottom line is, I don't, again, it's contradictory to me when people go to a PC Richards and complain that they're going to wait 3 months for a refrigerator. Nobody made refrigerators for a year. What did you think was going to happen? So this is, where we're at right now. Not to bring it back to the realtors and the loan officers and the people in industry, the inside baseball folks, but there's, the industry evolves and changes, and you have to make your changes to how you do business in order to survive in a new market, just like you would anything else, right? I'm doing this 30 years, but if I continue to do my business the way I did it 30 years ago, or even 5 years ago, I'd be out of business. This is, I think, the giant mistake realtors and loan officers make, where they keep saying things like, and you'll hear it, there's buzzwords. They'll say things like, well, 20 years ago, or I've been doing this for a long time now. Whenever somebody says, I've been doing this for 20 years, it almost is like an excuse for why they don't want to change and evolve into what they're doing now. So it's good that you're doing this 20 years, but if you're doing it without change for 20 years, then, you wouldn't name the product in your house that is the same as it was 20 years ago.
Nothing.
Phone call the way you did 20 years ago? Do you watch television the way you watched 20 years ago? Do you shop for food 20 years the way you did 20 years ago? No? Then why would you think it's okay to keep static the way you originate mortgages or sell homes for 20 years? It's not.
Sure. I mean, everything's evolved where you have a smart house, and the way that, if I get an oil change, I get an email from my car. So, everything's totally different. Now, in our world of lending and buying, there's the least ever, we're looking at the lowest inventory of all time. And there's this juxtaposition where people are saying, yes, it costs more money to buy a house or take a loan that they thought they were going to take, but there's just simply not enough houses. So people are calling for a reduction in price, but we're not really seeing that.
Yeah, the canary in the coal mine there, I think, is, and we've spoken about this, I guess, off camera, and I've had this conversation many times. My personal perspective on this is that there's a canary in the coal mine, which is when the FHA buyers, a market that's been pent up for the last 2 years or so, because of this housing shortage you're speaking about, there have been 10, 12, 15 offers on every house that comes out. Well, if there's 15 offers on a house, what's the likelihood that you're going to pick the ones at list price with 3.5% down? It's not very good. So those buyers, the interesting thing about those buyers with the 3 or 3.5% down, those people still they're still in the marketplace. It's not like they disappear from the marketplace. They don't. So that pressure builds up. It's almost like a pressure behind a plumbing fitting. It just gets bigger and bigger. And so when it does release, it comes through with a vengeance. And what I've started seeing only in the last 2 or 3 weeks is many more of those offers all of a sudden being accepted. And that to me is where you hit your stopwatch, right? That to me is the more you start seeing 3.5% down list price offers being accepted, that's sort of a snowball that you can't stop, because as sellers start to see that, and as sellers start seeing the rates coming up, the sellers are going to start saying, well, now's the time I got to sell before it changes. So spur on a few more sellers. The more sellers it spurs on, the more inventory you're going to get. The more inventory you get, it's sort of like a chain reaction. So it becomes a self-sustaining Fermi pile where it just gets bigger and bigger. And that's going to mean that more of that pent-up market of FHA buyers starts winning bids, and you'll see that evolve very quickly. So my feeling is that by the end of the year, you will see an opening up of the market. You will see more houses for sale, and that volume will go up. which is going to bring the pricing under control. Whether it comes down or not, I don't know. But as the rates go up, you're going to start seeing that happen, and it'll level off a little bit. So, I have things I'm teaching my loan officers to do to stay ahead of that market, to stay profitable in their margins, to stay relevant in their volume. Certainly things I'm teaching realtors to do in that market, but you can't fight the war you just fought. You have to fight the war coming up. And the war coming up, in my opinion, is going to be gearing up for FHA type buyers, 5% down conventional type buyers, because that's the market that's of the future.
Right. I mean, everything you say, I certainly understood and learned a few things. One of the factors that's competing with those circumstances are it's a spring market now. So people have emerged and the weather has been pretty crummy here in April. So now we're here and there's going to be this artificial influx of people who might have been sitting on the fence and want to buy before the rates get to 6.5. So, you still have days on the market. Days on the market on the various MLSs are increasing. That's a fact. Yeah. Prices have reduced nearly none. There's been a few reductions because we see it on the sheet. But the days on the market means people are sitting. Maybe they're entertaining more offers, or maybe they're not getting as many showings.
I think, Scott, what you're dealing with in stocks, there's an old, in the stock and bond market, there's an old saying, which is you buy the rumor, you sell the news, right? And I think in real estate that happens too. The buyers are out there on the anticipation of rates going up, on the anticipation of prices being what they're going to be. The sellers are reacting to the news of the day, which is, well, this is where the rates are now. There's less inventory. If I sell now, I'm going to get my price. I'm not sure what's going to happen 6 months from now.
Yeah, well, something I did, which I got some approval, and I spoke to some people who are pretty smart, and I would love this to be a trend. Sellers, instead of reducing their price, which they commonly do in $25,000 increments, that $25,000 buys a lot of points, buys 3-4 points. Mm-hmm. And now your house could come with a lower interest rate. And you don't have enough sophisticated realtors that would even engage in that if they're not aware of how this works.
Yeah, people talk about their interest rate at cocktail parties. Nobody's at at a cocktail party at 7 o'clock at night on a Thursday, and you're talking to your neighbors. You're talking about how you have a 2.875 interest rate. You're not talking about your PMI or how many points you paid or the fact that your loan's going to balloon in 5 years. You don't speak about those things. You just say, "Oh, I have a 2.875 interest."
And you don't even talk about your payment. Nobody would dare talk about I pay $4,400 a month. They They talk about their batting average. I have a 3.0. I locked in. I'm ahead of the market.
And to that, the old sell the sizzle, not the steak sort of thing is some of the realtors could benefit from going out and selling, maybe paying a point. Paying a point is now, if you go through competitor rates the way I do, whether it's credit unions or correspondent lenders, brokers, servicing lenders like myself. A servicing lender is someone who keeps your mortgage after they give it to you and collect your mortgage payment over the next 30 years. What we're seeing is more and more and more buyers paying at least a point. If you go on the internet and you dig deep into those rates that they put on there as advertisements, you're going to find out, oh, that's with 25% down. That's with paying a point. That's only locked for 30 days, or it's not locked at all. Lock-in procedures in banks are rapidly evolving. This week that we're taping this, the first week of May, that is a rapidly evolving situation right now, where all of a sudden you're seeing lenders more and more cap their rate lock extensions to 30 days.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's I believe.
I mean, that's a big deal in New York when you don't control title or C of O or lawyers on vacation. That's a big deal.
And I believe that will settle down. It's reaction to a market where if I'm closing, remember, I have realtors say things to me. It's very funny because the devil's in the details, right? So if we tell people an interest rate for somebody is 5% or 5.25%, and they say, well, I'm dealing with so and so as a lender, and they just closed a loan for 4.75. My answer to that is, yeah, well, I just closed a loan for 4.25. I actually closed an FHA loan yesterday for 3.75. And why? Because I'm dealing with a rate from 2 months ago. I'm dealing with a rate I locked in 2 months ago. So to say I'm closing loans at that rate, when I'm closing them at and when I'm writing them at in an environment as volatile as this, are two completely different things. So if you think about it, if you locked in an interest rate at 4.25 and you're ready to close and your seller has a problem that now they can't close for another month or two, if that lender has changed the policy where you can no longer extend that past 30 days, that is now a gigantic problem for the buyer.
Sure. I mean, what if there's an underground oil tank? What if there's these kind of things? We're going to see a lot of that. And, that's a really, I want to lead to this point where, the industry is really referral based. And I call it B2B for the lenders to talking to and having a relationship with agents, and agents want human beings walking around the earth to be clients, buyers, and sellers. And I know the industry, I've watched it since I started closing things in 1997, where it is a symbiotic relationship. And I know that it's really a one-way street. A lender can never give as many referrals or even introductions to agents that they desire and they need in return. And that's really, really important.
But that's true. But what the lender can do is partner. We don't our realtors are referral partners, right? When they succeed, we succeed. So you're right, it is a one-way street, but the lender has the ability, a savvy lender has the ability to understand how to assist their realtor partners in selling more houses and making more money. So while a lender is going to be able to refer less clients than a realtor can refer back to a lender, what they can do is put them in a situation where they're positioned to make more money.
Sure. I mean, that's really the objective, to help an agent grow their business, because you really cannot compete on rates because we all are subject to the same circumstances. And also there's a point that's going on now that trust is increasingly under attack. You have trust and confidence and vice versa with your referral agents, but all the venture capital and all the technology is going to disconnect the professionals from the consumer. Super Bowl, they ran a $30 million rocket mortgage. Zillow 15, 18 years ago put human beings in touch with agents without neighborhood referrals. So there's nothing supporting you and me and our agent referral partners. All the youngsters and all the people that are not really bought in, they just want to get through this ordeal. They're on their phone with Carvana and Amazon and Grubhub. This is one more thing that they don't appreciate, the complexity.
Yes, but and for the people that are watching this that don't understand the dynamic here, Scott and I know each other outside of this, PlugIntro, and so PlugIntro isn't the first time you and I have obviously spoken, and so we talk about some of these things a lot, like how we change things. Listen, I had to change how I drink coffee for this interview. I drink coffee now left-handed so I can put my product placement here. Otherwise, I have to give you a right-handed coffee. It doesn't show you where I work.
Good point.
We'll have to evolve and change, right? And so technology drives the evolution. Right now, it's driving how that I drink my coffee left-handed. But technology has driven changes for the entire time I've been in this industry, for the entire time you've been in this industry. In the 90s, a company that's no longer on Long Island, but had emerged, National Home Finders. And National Home Finders' big push in the early 90s was you'll be able to see 100 houses on your lunch break with this new thing we have, the internet. And real estate agents were freaking out over that, freaking out, saying, you can't do that. How are you going to watch TV and see houses? You have to be in the house. They're trying to put us out of business. Real estate agents are going to be non-existent in 5 years. Well, of course, that wasn't true. In the late 90s and the early 2000s, they came out with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac came out with their automated underwriting systems, desktop underwriter, loan prospector for Freddie Mac, and the lenders were freaking out over this. There's no way I'm putting my loan in that thing and letting that thing spit out whether or not my customer is approved or not. There's no way. I'm trusting a computer or math program with my, and now it's an industry standard. It was, loan officers are going to go out of business. No, they're not. We evolve with the technology. So am I afraid of technology putting us on a path where people are going to get their mortgage through their app? No. What we have to do as loan officers, whether it's the loan officers and underwriters who work for me, whether it's the processors and loan assistants, closers, those are the inside people, whether it's the realtors or the customers, everyone has to evolve with the technology. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
It's not about your comfort. It's not about your comfort as the mortgage loan officer. This is a conversation I had. I give a meeting once a week to all my loan officers. I do an all hands meeting. And this was a conversation I had yesterday. I said, show of hands, how many of you have a conversation with someone you're about to pre-approve and then email them a link to complete the link and put on their own application? And about 3/4 of them said yes, and 1/4 of them said no. And I said, well, why not? And the answers I was getting was something along the lines of, well, I just find I'm more comfortable doing it this way. To which the rhetorical answer I have is it about your comfort or the customer's comfort? Right? I'm going to ask the same thing of the realtor. I have realtors say, well, I take pride in the fact that I only show houses. I have to be there with them to show the house. I'm not going to tell the person the price of the house or anything about the house unless I'm there with the house. Okay, well, is that your comfort level? Is that your fear that you're reacting to? Or is it the comfort level of the customer? Doesn't matter what you sell, Scott, whether it's you, me, or anyone else. We are going to sell the most when we give the comfort level to the customer and we alter what we do for their comfort level. Right?
Good point. Good point. Good point. And I tell you, to serve my needs, I put together this platform where I was not meeting enough people and I was not having enough value against the big box competition. So I realized it's not about me and my expert services. It's about giving someone a chance where they can promote their services. Everyone's involved in social media. PlugIntro is really a version of local business media, and it's mine. Where PlugIntro is yours, it's your users, it's your agents, it's your members, it's a local business community. People post on Facebook and I say, well, that post is 2 inches. Everyone sees it. You didn't bring it to anyone and it doesn't give value. You're not offering anyone anything. I had recently a big agent in Houston for Compass. And all you hear is market to sphere. You've been hearing that. How many would you like $1 for every time you've heard market to your sphere? And I say that just means tell people about you. No one has ever offered anyone anything in their sphere. And people belligerently say, well, I give them information. They don't. I mean, information, they're completely void of an offer. So I thought if we slice off a piece of Facebook and give it to Joe Latini and give it to the people that he knows so they benefit, he would be seen as a real benefactor. And now someone should reciprocate. Not everyone.
And it works out well because what I like about your platform here is it gives the loan officers I've seen, because I do watch your interviews with other loan officers and whatnot. And what it does is it gives those loan officers a platform to get beyond the X's and O's of what we do and learn a little bit about them. I always tell the story. My father, again, was a pioneer of this business. And, and when he had started, he was one of those 40 loan a month, 40 unit a month guys that he originated. And I always tell the story of the people that walked in his office and wrote a mortgage. And at that time, you took they called it, and you sat there and you wrote, the mortgage took about 40 minutes or whatever it took. And when they walked out, they were laughing, hysterical, and they engaged with him. And the wife had said to the husband, "Did you understand any of that?" And the husband said, "No, but I trust that guy. I love that guy." And that was what they did. Think about what I in my industry sell, Scott. I sell tax deductible money over 30 years at a 5% interest rate. Crack dealers wish they had the product that I have to sell. I don't sell this in the truest sense of selling. That my product sells itself.
And not to mention, you have a chance for appreciation, let alone
What I'm selling does not. If you can't sell, 30-year amortized tax deductible money at 5%, you shouldn't be in the selling anything business. And it's not. People don't use us because of what we sell. They use us because they trust us to explain it to them in a way they'll understand, not to cheat them, to make sure that we're looking out for their interest and we're helping them navigate through the process. That is what people go to when they're getting a mortgage.